Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant has had enough about the talk about his leadership. Tyus Jones really wanted to be in Phoenix, and we got a debut happening in the Valley, only it's the other team, not the Suns. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this game day Monday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button and do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked onto the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode, guys, brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Start the season with a big return at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Joining me, as always, the executive producer of The Drive on Fox Sports 910 from the wonderful West Valley. How are we feeling on this Monday, Ben Garcia?
It's so good. It's so good. I'm an all Arizona guy. The fans, the listeners know that by now. Cardinals got a dub. Suns look good. They win a game yesterday that they usually lose last year. And then we got some really, really cool stories that I didn't see. You sent them to me that we're going to talk about. These really cool stuff. So I'm excited, man. It's a good Monday. It is a good Monday.
With all due respect to the Portland Trailblazers and the Suns, who gave a nice effort on Saturday night, I don't think there was much to take away from that game. I feel like they took care of business, and we can freak out about the fourth quarter, Ben, or we can just say, hey, they won. They didn't actually cough up the lead and lose. They won the game. So we're going to skip it, and we're going to just talk about some stories that we missed along the way, and that starts with the never-ending, very obnoxious conversation about Kevin Durant's leadership. And I will just read you the key quote, okay? So Stephen A. Smith has been taking aim at KD for leadership stuff for a long time. He has been taking aim at KD for a lot of things for a long time. We've all heard the leadership debate all the way through his career, but even since maybe January of last season or so, December of last season. And finally, Doug Haller at The Athletic got an answer, kind of on the record, more directly from Durant on Saturday night, saying, yeah, Stephen A., I don't understand how people even listen to Stephen A. I've been in the league for 18 years. I've never seen Stephen A. at a practice or a film session or a shoot-around. I've never seen him anywhere but on TV talking, you know what, about players. He's a clown to me. He's always been a clown, and you can write that too. There's a lot more in here, Ben, that we can get to about the leadership that actually is in place from KD, but what is your response or reaction to Durant being so forceful with his pushback this time when mostly he just is on Twitter or kind of letting it play out and ignoring it?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with what Kevin Durant said. Nothing wrong. If you, like, this is what I do, right? I'm not in the Stephen A. Smith realm of takes where you're just saying things to get a reaction. But I am I've kind of molded my career in the lane of I have strong opinions and I back them up with statistics and facts, and that's how I feel and that's how I think I do things. I'm in that sort of lane. I will never say something on this microphone, on record, that I will not say to a player's face. I would say it openly. I'd say it. I've had this conversation with people before. Like, you wouldn't say that but I absolutely would. I'm not critiquing people as anything more than basketball. The leadership thing is still such a touchy subject with Kevin Durant because I don't care about the leadership thing. He doesn't need to be the leader of this team. But Kevin Durant is absolutely right. And the Stephen A. Smith thing, his shtick is starting to get a little old. And he's the same guy that kind of threw fire on the Devin Booker, Kevin Durant trade things a while ago. Like, if Stephen A. Smith shoots from the hip, but he does it recklessly. And yeah, the things that he says about Kevin Durant, like, at that point, you're just regurgitating takes that you heard from other people, like Charles Barkley, like whatever. Like, I don't respect it because I don't think it is something that Stephen A. Smith would say to a player specifically. I've never seen him press a player. And I have seen it with Charles Barkley. I have seen it with Colin Coward, and I have seen it with guys like that. You might not have to like what he has to say, but I totally agree with Kevin Durant. You are absolutely allowed to defend yourself, and you're allowed to call guys clowns, as long as that's all it is.
Yeah, I honestly don't even think it's a Stephen A. Smith thing in particular. I mean, he's one of the only guys that would do this.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger issue is he's not making it clear that it's actually coming from anywhere. You know, like we all saw the Jaylen Brown thing play out, right? Where Jaylen Brown pushed him, said, "What are your sources?" And Stephen A. Smith did a sit down with him and kind of had to basically like explain himself. In this case, it just kind of seems like it's his opinion. I don't even think Stephen A. Smith is sitting there saying, you know, I've heard from anyone in the Suns It's just made up at the end of the day. It's just a take, and it's goofy because it is provable, right? Like that's the part where it just starts to be a little bit crazy, and I totally understand KD getting fed up with it. And he had this other thing to say that I want to make sure to include here. He said, obviously, you grow as a human being. You get more comfortable with yourself. You get more comfortable talking to crowds as you experience more and more in the league. I've always been on this trajectory of diving deep into the game, not just for myself, but for the whole team. To say that I'm just sitting here, you paint this picture of me coming into the locker room, not talking to my teammates, quiet, not talking to my coaches, like, come on, man. It's just ridiculous. And I'll add this, Ben. I think Kevin Durant, we're at most of these home games. I've watched every game KD's played with the Suns. He's the most vocal player on the court on this team. I understand, and I'm not trying to be like condescending. I mean it. It is hard to see on TV. So maybe people listening and watching to our show right now don't see that. So I'll say it. You watch, there was a couple of the turnovers yesterday. There was a moment with Mason Plumlee at one point. There was a moment in the early third quarter in that Saturday night game after the Suns just were getting a little loose and taking some good but not great shots in that first half where they should have been up more and they weren't. Early third quarter, he comes out. The first possession that the Suns have a stop and they're going the other way, he goes like that. Slow it down. You know what I mean? He is doing these things. Anyone who says otherwise, it's not even about the I do it a different way, I lead by example. I believe all that. But what's insane to me that we keep having this conversation is that it doesn't even have to get that deep. Watch a Suns game. The guy communicates, holds his teammates accountable, and sets a good example. It doesn't need to be deeper than that. And anybody who's saying otherwise, I agree with you. It's lazy, and it's just sort of like, that's the thing we say about KD. So I guess KD's coming up on the TV show. I guess I got to say that again. And it's like, you know, just kind of open your eyes, I guess.
Well, it's what I hope people get from our show. You know, oftentimes I'll throw something to you and you're like, no, it's stupid. It's either, and I'm okay with that. It's either like a topic not too long ago where you're like, I don't really want to get in that. I don't want to get into every little topic or rumor, or I don't want to do this because it's the same thing everyone else is doing. It's very similar to like the Suns Portland Trailblazer game the other day. Everyone is doing the same narrative of, oh, the San Antonio Spurs, they lose that game last year. That's the only thing to take from that game. That's what everyone is doing. Try to do things a little bit differently. And with Stephen A. Smith, just full circle moment here, what he likes to do is regurgitate takes he's already heard before, whether it's Barkley, whether it's whoever it is, and put it out in a national scale because he is into the attention space, the click space. And that's what ESPN likes about him. But you had said before, a second ago with the Jaylen Brown thing, and I had said he had thrown fire on the Devin Booker, Kevin Durant thing. It wasn't just Jaylen Brown. He legitimately said, Devin Booker wants to be in New York. He said that verbatim. He's just yapping. Like I don't like to take shots at other, but like he is at this point a professional yapper. I don't really know what he's adding to ESPN outside of an entertainment factor at this point, because the guy is entertaining, but nothing he says has nuance. I don't take anything Stephen A. Smith says seriously. And I don't know if there's a lot of people out there who take the opinion of Stephen A. Smith and just be like, oh, that's interesting. He just talks nonsense, man.
We're talking about 100% the same page that he is.
Yeah.
I think wearing thin with some of his analysis on these things. And it's disappointing, I think, separately that ESPN puts him so prominently on its NBA coverage because of this. I I wish that they would care more about really thinking about the league, talking about the league, doing it in a better way. But part of why I wanted to broaden it out is this was a response to Stephen A. Smith, but this topic, this conversation around KD is way bigger than him, than Stephen A. And no matter who it's coming from, no matter when it's coming, does he have moments where it gets, a little bit too spicy? Of course, everybody does. The season last year tested everybody. It was a nightmare. The coach got fired. Multiple players were on the cutting room floor. I don't begrudge him for it, really, at the end of the day. And I said that on the record throughout last season. I would point it out, and I would say, who could blame him, right? So it's just tired, and I hope that this year, maybe if the team's just better, that topic just gets put to bed, because there's plenty of basketball things, there's plenty of positive, and there's plenty of real criticism, if you actually want to have it, that's going to be there for every player. So we don't just need to keep spinning our wheels on the same exact topic. One topic we got more info about was Tyus Jones' arrival in Phoenix, the pursuit of him, and how quickly he is integrated in with this group. We'll talk through that next. First, today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp, making therapy easy and more accessible for everybody. This month is all about gratitude, and along with I'm supposed to shout somebody out. Thanks, Ben, for being such a great new co-host.
What did I do this time?
Well, you just a person that I'm gratitude
Oh.
for. I don't know. I'm supposed to say it. Sometimes it's hard to remind ourselves that we're trying to make our best sense of everything, and in this crazy world, that isn't easy. But here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. And one way to do that is to try out therapy. BetterHelp is there for you to get that ball rolling. It does not have to be extreme, emergencies, trauma. It can just be about helping learn positive coping skills, setting boundaries, empowering yourself to be the best version of yourself, and more. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you got to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Ben, let's keep it rolling here. We took some shots at Stephen A. Smith. You think he's going to find out? I don't know.
I hope he does. There's nothing I will say about Stephen A. Smith or someone that I will not say to their face. I would swear anyone try me on that.
Should we talk about his leadership on First Take? Say he's not.
He's just. just
not leading, not setting an example with his teammates.
Before we get to this next thing, just really quickly, that Kevin, he doesn't need to be the leader, so I don't care about the conversation. I don't care if he is, and I think Kevin Durant is a leader. I just think it's different. I don't care. He doesn't need to be. He just needs to be the best player, in my opinion. Devin Booker's the leader. I don't care about anything else. Anyways, the conversation is nauseating. I don't care.
Well, and to be honest with you, on Saturday, Bud was asked about who kind of steps up in a moment like when things were getting tight in that fourth quarter. He pointed to Tyus Jones as another example, right? I mean, that's a real veteran point guard. I think leadership is only one of these things we talk about when either a team is bad and we don't know how to explain why, or when we don't have anything else and we just want to criticize somebody. We didn't have a conversation. I didn't hear anybody talking about Boston's leadership last year. I'm not saying they didn't have leaders. I'm not saying any of the individual dudes on that team don't demonstrate this type of skills, and I think Joe Mazzulla proved himself a lot. We didn't have any conversations about it because they steamrolled through the East. Everybody was playing great, and it didn't come up. So it's a silly conversation. But Tyus Jones is one of the Suns' leaders, and Ramona Shelburne over at ESPN was able to shed some light on the pursuit of Tyus this summer, Ben. And some of this we knew from Media Day and from his introductory press conference and just some things along the way. Just, the meetings at Summer League, kind of keeping that door open, keeping that conversation going with his representatives. He had deals on the table in that mid-level range from a bunch of trash teams. He didn't want to be on a trash team. He wanted to come here, and he wanted to compete, and he took a big pay cut to do it. What stuck out to you about some of these new details from the Suns getting their point guard and kind of, in a a lot of ways, capping off a really awesome summer.
Yeah, when you had sent me this Ramona Shelburne story, I hadn't seen it. And so I was looking at it, and the Tyus Jones aspect, some of it, you just kind of already expected that to be the case. Like, he took less money to come here. Although it was eye-opening, some of his quotes of like, man, he literally said, man, that's a perfect fit, but I just wish they had more money. Like, that was eye-opening too, that it
Like,
still kind of weighed that much.
From the beginning, he just wasn't sure if it would work. Yeah, it was.
Which is crazy. The second apron stuff is so insane. But what really caught my eye was how toxic it was for Bradley Beal last year. That he was literally like, they were using me more as a facilitator. This is a quote, obviously. They're using me more as a facilitator than a scorer. And honestly, that kind of effed with my head. Literally this whole summer, I just had to have a reflection, just like, who are you? Like, there's so much deeper than basketball that this guy that even I was asking at times, like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, they're on these trips and they're having fun. And oftentimes I kind of ask tongue in cheek, like, where's Bradley Beal? It's a lot of soul searching for Bradley Beal. And he's fit in so seamlessly through this Tyus Jones thing where, like, he hasn't shot particularly well, but it hasn't been such an issue because he's been doing other things really well, including defense. And I think that has taken a huge load off of him. So this Tyus Jones stuff, where I did find it fascinating that he was already looking from them from the get-go, that I just look at the Bradley Beal stuff, and last year was so toxic for him. And we never saw it until the literal last game of the season, where he fouls out, shakes off Frank Vogel, and it turns out that all those things probably were right about Frank Vogel. And I thought that was really eye-opening to see that it was so toxic for him last year. And for him to be so excited to be here last year, that it literally just messed with his brain. And I thought that was the biggest thing from the story, was how much that this is helping Bradley Beal. What about you?
It's been great to see Beal, I think, clearly more comfortable in this season. And honestly, again, we said we weren't going to talk too much about Saturday, and now we keep referencing it. But in that game, he had a bad first half, or just an inefficient first half. It wasn't like he played terribly, but just wasn't in a rhythm because he's coming back from the elbow thing and kind of working his way into form after the week off. And second half comes out, part of that big third quarter, has some buckets late, is playing good defense. And I just think a game like that is a perfect example where I think last year it probably just compounds and he gets in his head and he gets frustrated. And I'm not saying, every game like that was terrible for him, but he's just in a position now where I think he's going to thrive. I think you could say similar things about Devin Booker and some of the big performances he's had recently, where I said the number one thing last year, all year for Book was he was clearly just thinking too much. And you could almost see those wheels turning. KD has been put in a position to succeed at a much, much higher level, is in another world with his scoring to start the season. But what's funny to me, Ben, even if I can say all that, and I agree with your point from a psyche standpoint with Beal, Tyus Jones to me is almost like a weighted blanket for some of these guys. Because if you watch this team, they're not using Tyus Jones as John Stockton in 1995, being the surgical, precise, dribble, deliver a spot-on pass, 15 assists a night. And it's just a guy who I feel like when he is on the court, they just breathe a sigh of relief, even if they're still being used as playmakers and initiators like they were last year. It's funny that it is so big to them when the style of play and even some of the lineups are very similar to last year at times, and yet you hear them and it's like a whole new world has opened up. So that was my big takeaway, is I'm like, you guys are you were just so in your heads that this is such a relief for you, even though it doesn't look too different at the end of the day.
Wait, that's a really good point. I want you to expand on that a little bit for me. You think Tyus Jones, and I think it's a really good point, has helped more, almost more, or as much psychologically for this team? Because that's a really good observation. When I'm watching the Suns team, oftentimes, I haven't said this to you, so this would be new to you that I've said this, but I was like, what? it doesn't feel like Tyus Jones is doing anything, but him just being on the court is changing everything. Is that kind of where it is psychologically for you?
Well,
That's a really good
I
point.
mean, we
Really
talked
good
about
point.
it after the first game, I think, where we were kind of like, oh, the ball's not always in his hands. And what is that going to mean? And is that going to be the case? And it's kept up that way. There's plenty of times where Tyus is spotting up in the corner, where he is, maybe getting the inbound, but quickly hitting ahead to Booker, KD, and then just kind of being a component part of the offense from that point on. He's not overhauling every possession the way that maybe you could have thought that he would. So I don't know the percentages and proportions, but I definitely think that it's very clear that just him being on the team, him being out there, him having that skill set is just letting everybody breathe a little easier. It almost tells me, Ben, that like the narrative and the conversation around it all last season, like, was more real than even we thought. We're the ones who all we do is talk because we're fans. We have no ability to affect the outcome of the game, but whatever we were saying, I feel like they were feeling it like 3 times more.
And it's kind of interesting because I did expect Tyus Jones to have the ball in his hands more than it feels like he does. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it just doesn't feel like he has the ball in his hands all that much. And sometimes they pull him off the court completely. We saw them roll out what I'm calling the death lineup: Royce O'Neal, Ryan Dunn, and the big three. And so Tyus Jones just coming into that mix, it does feel like Budenholzer oftentimes will call timeouts, throw Tyus Jones out there, and he's just the quarterback of this team where he's just limiting the mistakes. And that has been a huge component for this team this year. Man, Tyus Jones has been so much better than even I thought he'd be this year. And the details of it are just really interesting with how it all went down.
He's been great. He is making an impact. He's fitting great. It's just funny, the slight difference between the words and the reality. And I think that just speaks to how discombobulated it all was last year, if we're all being honest.
Really is crazy
Sixers,
to me that how much of it was. Just really quickly, that article that was written directly after the Suns got swept last year with Frank Vogel, I didn't believe that it was so toxic. Like, I just was like, okay, get over yourself. And I'm like, wow. I think a lot of this had to do with not only Frank Vogel, the personnel,
the
like
roster.
exactly the roster, the personnel, the Frank Vogel. I cannot believe it was that bad, but it clearly was, because they're 5-1 and winning close games. And I don't even think they've put together a full 48 minutes of Suns basketball yet. And they're 5-1. This team's good, man. Sorry. Do your tease. It's
fascinating to see what would have happened if Chris Paul had been able to stay on the team. I wonder, I don't think he's any great player, but again, just that relief of kind of things
from last year
into place role-wise. Yeah, if Chris Paul had not had to be in the Beal trade, because that's kind of how Shelburne frames the whole thing, is like, to get Beal, this big get, they had to give up the guy who kind of made everything work, and that's how she sort of framed it, and it is interesting.
Wow.
Last thing on Tyus before we jump. What do you put the percentage at that he's on the team next year?
Zero. Unless Devin
10.
Booker, unless Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal are all agreeing to pay him under the table some of their salary. No, he's not coming back. He's not.
All you have to do is look at Bruce Brown to prove Ben's point. And he won a title and said, I appreciate everything you guys did for me. I'm going to go get my bag. So,
and I don't blame him. It's zero blame. The guy's got his own family.
Not.
The guy's got his own life. He's already taking a pay cut. It's this year. I don't want to say or never, because the emergence of Dunn, and you could draft the point guard and things could work out. We've seen this team. But for the Tyus Jones, it is this year or never. And zero. It's not happening.
Okay.
I hope it does.
I'll go 10. We'll check in on that throughout the year. And obviously, we got a long way to go before that matters. Paul George making his debut in the Valley. Joel Embiid under investigation. A little bit of an interesting time for the 76ers to be coming to Phoenix. What to expect from that game next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Let's check out what is brewing in the world of sports. Okay, so the Cardinals are already 1.5-point favorites at home. That's the same line they got against the Bears. It was disrespectful with Chicago. It's disrespectful with the Jets, but it is what it is.
Hammer it.
I feel good about it. I feel a little dicey telling people to bet such narrow things, but hey, it is what it is. And then the Suns are, let's see, the NBA. Okay, I don't see their line. I'm assuming that they are pretty significant favorites here. I would hope, right? Okay, 6.5. They're minus 260 to win. That's a better one. Get your $5. Joel Embiid's still out, and then get to work with the 150 in bonus bets with that win, all at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Closing out the show, Ben. All right. So Paul George could make this team not a laughingstock, which is basically kind of how they've started the season, unfortunately. I mean, they just don't.
Wait a second. You're telling me Eric Gordon isn't working out? That's crazy. I would have never been able to tell them that.
They just got slammed with all sorts of injury crap right away. So,
that's weird. Two guys that get injured a lot are injured again. Wow. Who would have thought of that? Oh, that's crazy. Sorry.
Yeah. So, it's like it's Lowry still starting. It is Drummond starting in place of Embiid.
Oh my goodness.
They're working, Yabusele in and all this sort of stuff. They're playing the rookie a lot. So this is a beatable team. As I just said in the FanDuel ad, the Suns are heavy favorites. 7 points is pretty big in the NBA. And I don't think Paul George changes that. What are you watching for?
I'm sure Paul George will be on a minutes restriction in this game, but it does add a different element to their offense because I'm a big Tyrese Maxey guy. In fact, I think Tyrese Maxey should be the 2 on this team, not the 3, especially with Paul George getting older. He's had some,
because
I don't think a lot of 76ers fans think that. I think which I get because Paul George is a wing, he's bigger, but this isn't the 76ers podcast, so I won't get deep into that, but it does add another element, another shot maker, but Paul George hasn't played this year. He's going to be on a minutes restrictions. I was kind of excited to see Ryan Dunn potentially on Tyrese Maxey in this game. A little bit of a smaller player. We're not even sure that those two would have matched up in this game, but I would be just kind of curious how he would do laterally with a player that's a little bit more quicker in Tyrese Maxey. I still think he'd do well against him, but just another player of death row for Ryan Dunn, where he's had Luka Doncic, LeBron James Harden twice.
Yeah.
Anthony Simons? I guess that's who I could throw out there for the Jahmai Grant, and then tonight at this point with Paul George, where I still think the Suns are going to beat them. I just do think, and again,
I think we will see Dunn on Maxey. Still would be my guess.
Well, I mean, either way,
all the different lineups that flow through, and I think it's a good call that it will be a different type of test. I mean, even in the preseason, it was Cade twice. That's also similar to that LeBron, Luka, Harden mold, right? So I don't think we've gotten to see Dunn take that kind of test, but not even just Ryan Dunn, this team. I mean, that is a type of player that they have struggled with for a long time. We all remember Terry Rozier going off against the Suns last season, right? And Malik Monk had a bunch of big games. Jalen Brunson had a big game. Cam Thomas had a big game. This is kind of a sticking point. So is it, Beal being deployed in that way? Is it Dunn just kind of locking him down and getting more minutes that way? Is their team defense able to execute it? And I would throw in another part of this because Jared McCain is another guy who can burn them like this, and Maxey and Paul George. Pull-up threes. The Suns have had a little bit of struggle defending pull-up threes this season when you think of LeBron and Austin Reeves kind of got them. James Harden has burned them. I mean, obviously it's James Harden. I get it, Luka as well. But when they're defending ball screens, communicating and executing what they want to be doing, is it a switch? Is it over with Nurkic in a drop? Is it, Nurkic up to the level of the screen, getting a hand in the shooter's face? Bud wants to have his guys in drop, so that's probably going to mean that the guy defending that ball handler has to be really fighting through those screens and not giving the shooter space, I mean, that's easier said than done. So I could see a heavier dose of pull-up threes that kind of makes the Suns sweat a little bit in this game, considering the Sixers' talent.
I'll tell you what, I am a little disappointed that Joel Embiid isn't playing in this game. Not that I was expecting him to play, but I am a little disappointed because I did want to see Yusuf Nurkic go up against another really good big man, especially offensively and, of course, defensively as well. Joel Embiid's a good defender. And just the ability to maybe not commit so many stupid fouls. But there's another aspect of this where Andre Drummond will be in this game. Andre Drummond, outside of Yusuf Nurkic chucking threes this year, very similar to the player of Yusuf Nurkic, where I want to see how he does. He did pretty well defensively on DeAndre Ayton on Saturday, but both of them put up a Spider-Man meme stat line where they were basically the same player. I am curious to see how Yusuf Nurkic rolls against a big man that isn't exactly in the top half of big men in the NBA. So I'm curious to see how he does.
Matchup.
But if he doesn't, that's a red flag. But I think he'll be able to.
Yeah, Drummond is not a lob threat, so that's somebody that can kind of burn Nurk at times. He is, offensively limited, and as long as you can kind of keep track of him on the glass, then you're gonna kind of be okay, I think. One other thing from me would just be the length on the defensive end with PG back. If there's anything a Nick Nurse coach team with wings can do, it is try to complicate things for you on the defensive end. Now I say that, and the Grizzlies had a pretty huge offensive night against them just the last game, so it's not as if Philly's been locked down. But again, with PG in there, they have Caleb Martin, they have KJ Martin, they have Eric Gordon. They have enough guys where I could see it being a little more of a low-scoring kind of battle of a game than maybe the Suns are expecting. So I think that they should be able to take care of business, but I don't overlook even a bad team so far like Philly has been. Nick Nurse, star players, like you can't say, all right, we got the Heat Wednesday. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what happened with the Trailblazers. That's why I didn't kill the Suns about that. I just think that they felt like they had that one in the bag, and when they had to basically sit up in their chair in a video game that they're losing, they did, and they beat them. And I don't think it was late in that game. It did get a little dicey, but either way. Also, did you know Andre Drummond's only 31 years old? It feels like he's been in the league for 50 years.
He was pretty young when he got drafted, but that's insane.
An Andre Drummond guy who can't shoot free throws, can't shoot, period. I would be curious to see if the Suns do go small in this game and try to run him off the floor. Now, the guy can't do anything. So you might see that death lineup again from the Phoenix Suns: Royce O'Neal, Ryan Dunn, and the big three. I think that'd be fun to watch out.
And Philly doesn't really have a backup center. They have a rookie right now. He's not really playing, so I guess they've been kind of playing Yabu as their backup five. So that could be where this game goes.
Decent this year, Yabusele.
Sure. That will wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe. Sign up for the Locked On Suns daily newsletter. Forgot to plug that. That link is in the show description below. You can also type in Locked On Daily. Click the Suns logo. Put your email in. Get all the news and analysis you need about this team in your inbox in the middle of every single day. You get the podcast, then that, and you're all set for the game on Monday night. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you right after the buzzer. See you then.